Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't met me before, my name is Mark Jacobson. I've been working as a tour guide for over 35 years. I work locally in San Diego for day tripper tours. I've worked there for about 12 years. I also work for Vacations by Rail, Gate 1. In fact, the last time I was in Nashville, I was doing a tour for Gate 1, and we were staying at, I think the Hampton Inn is where we were staying downtown here. And that was pretty nice. I'm also a certified member of the San Diego Professional Tour Guide Association, so I just want to say hello to everyone and say welcome. Thank you for your support. Also a reminder, if you do enjoy today's tour, I do these walking tours every Wednesday at the same time. Next Wednesday I'm going to be in Charleston, South Carolina. And then I'm going to be back in San Diego doing Old Town, but this time it's going to be a little different. We're doing the other side of Old Town. We're going to do Presidio Park, and we're going to do the Dia de los Muertos. Should be all decorated still for that Day of the Dead. And so the best way to stay in touch with what I'm doing is to like me on Facebook. So if you haven't already done that, you can do that now. You can do a watch party right now too if you want to share this with your friends and they can watch along with you. I also have a YouTube channel and a website. Both are Mark's Delicious Adventures. So, but the best way by far, and you guys all know this, is just word of mouth. So if you guys are enjoying this and want to tell your friends about it, I really do appreciate your support. And these tours are free. You can leave a tip though via PayPal. I do work for tips or Venmo in the links that you see on your computer page there. The tour should last about an hour and 30 minutes. You can follow along on the map link that I provided. You can check that out in the links at the bottom. It depends on what device you're on there. It's better to watch this on your computer or an iPad versus a phone, but if you are stuck with the phone, try to turn it sideways so you have a better picture. It's better to watch it landscape. Don't be afraid to comment or ask questions. Tell us where you're from. That's always kind of interesting. And a reminder too, if you are having a connection problem, the problem could be on your end, especially if you don't see anybody else really complaining about the connection. If you have a low BPS in your home and you're not used to streaming stuff, if you've got a real slow signal, then usually your connection gets compromised by maybe eliminating the audio or the video. So your solution probably would be to call your cable provider and request a higher speed if you're going to do a lot of streaming. If your screen does freeze, the best thing I can say is just to try to refresh it. And if you lose the feed entirely, which could happen, just go back to the beginning and press the link and you will find me again. Because we are at the mercy of technology here. Sometimes we get into these areas where all of a sudden we go from 4 bars on my phone to 1 bar. I pre-walked this route though. We should be okay today, but you just never know. It's technology. And so today's walk, of course, we're in downtown Nashville here. We're right smack dab in the middle of Tennessee, between Memphis and Memphis is to our east about 3 hours, and then Memphis is to our west 4 hours, I'm sorry. And to our east would be Knoxville and the Smoky Mountains. That's about 3 hours to the east. So we're right smack dab in the middle. This area is called the Piedmont zone. It's the Cumberland River Valley. Lots of beautiful rolling hills and trees. It's just absolutely gorgeous here. And we're going to start right here by the Country Music Hall of Fame, and we're going to end up kind of on the north side of downtown by the State Capitol building. It's going to be a distance of about 2 miles, and I'm going to point out some really interesting sights along the way. So I just want to do just a few introductory things before we start walking. We're, like I said, in the Cumberland River Valley. We're going to see the Cumberland River here in just a minute, the north central part of Tennessee. By the way, if you're wondering how much it costs Californians to buy a home here, the median home value here is about $298,000. So right now in San Diego, it's about $700,000. That's where I live. And so everything seems incredibly cheap. Go to the grocery store, just everything. I would say the restaurants though are about the same price because it is pretty touristy here. Of course, many names for Nashville. We hear it as Music City, USA all the time. But did you know that Nashville is also a big center for healthcare, for publishing, for banking, for transportation? Back in the day, it was a big riverboat town. Capital of Tennessee. A lot of the jobs here in Nashville are related to the state government. And also, it's very much a college town. They call it the Athens of the South. There's 16 colleges and universities. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Nashville is a city that has gone from a small, medium-sized city to kind of a big city in the last 10 to 20 years. And so, right now the population of Nashville is 700,000 people. The metro population is about 2 million, which makes it the largest city in Tennessee, the second largest city in the southeastern United States. For years ago it was Memphis. For many years, forever, that was the largest city in Tennessee. But that part of Tennessee is kind of going down, and the central part of Tennessee around Nashville here is really going up. And so Nashville surpassed Memphis in population here a few years ago. But as I mentioned, this is called the Athens of the South, not only because of the universities, but you're going to see a lot of neoclassical Greek revival style architecture here. Belmont University is here, Lipscomb University is here, Nashville School of Law, Tennessee State University, and then of course the biggest one of all, Vanderbilt University, which, by the way, that's where the presidential debate is going to be tomorrow. Right now, this building across from me, I'll show you here in just a minute, is going to be where the CMT Awards are going to be tonight. But no one's going to be watching inside. Just a lot of the segments have been pre-recorded, so I'll talk a little bit more about that. Nashville, surprisingly, is very low cost of living compared to a lot of the United States, although that's changing because people have kind of found out about this place. Very good job market. It's become very popular for immigrants. They have a very large population of Mexicans, Kurds, Vietnamese, Laotians, Cambodians, Arabs, and so Nashville actually has the largest Kurdish community in the United States, numbering about 11,000. So anyway, I'm going to get up and start walking here. I'm going to put away all my stuff, and I'm going to show you the Country Music Hall of Fame. I gotta turn this all around. You guys are sick of looking at my face anyway. Okay. You still hearing me okay, everybody? So you're gonna hear a little bit of country music. I'm gonna turn around here so you can get a nice view of this building that is just right in front of us. Let's look at this building. Yeah, this is the convention center, and we'll get a little bit better view of it here when we get further away from it. But it's called the Music City Center. It was built in 2003. Down here on the ground below me, you see all of this inscriptions, dates, what have you. This is the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, so you can see like Dolly Parton, for example, Merle Haggard. So this is kind of a tribute to all of the country music songwriters, really. Across the way is the Walk of Fame. We're going to see that in just a minute. And then we're seeing the side view here of the Country Music Hall of Fame. The museum store is on the side here. But let's turn around so you can get a better view of Music City Center. This, like I say, is their convention center, built in 2003. Really impressive building. But I'm going to go across the street here so you can get a better view of that. You hear that music? This little box here, this little kiosk here, plays music. So it's kind of fun when you walk past here, you hear music all the time. Hence the name Country Music Capital, Music City, USA. I got to get across this street here. So this building right here in front of us, this is Bridgestone Arena, and this was built in the 90s. The Nashville Predators, the hockey team, plays here. You can see the advertisement for the hockey team. This is where the CMT Awards are going to be tonight. But let me talk a little bit, first of all, about this building right here in front of us. That is the Country Music Hall of Fame. This is a really good view from right here. Notice the unique architecture. So membership in the Country Music Hall of Fame is the highest honor a country music professional can receive. It was created in 1961 by the Country Music Association. Of course, this is not their original building. The original building was kind of over by Studio B, south of downtown, and it looked like kind of a small little barn. It was almost laughable, actually. And so when they built this building a few years ago, I was like, wow, talk about a change. And so some of the first inductees into the Country Music Hall of Fame, Hank Williams, Jimmy Rogers, Fred Rose. Some of the most recent inductees, Brooks and Dunn, Ray Stevens, Hank Williams Jr. This year. And so they do special ceremonies here at the Hall of Fame for new inductees. But that museum has 2.5 million artifacts. They have over 200,000 recordings, including an estimated 90% of all pre-World War II country recordings, approximately 500,000 photographs. They have 30,000 moving images on film, and including a film about kind of Glenn Campbell narrates the history of country music, if you go in there and watch a movie. They have hundreds of historical musical instruments like Earl Scruggs' banjo, Bob Wills' fiddle, and Bill Monroe's mandolin. Thousands of items of clothing like Patsy Cline's cocktail dress, Johnny Cash's black suit from the Johnny Cash show, Reba McEntire's red dress. Sorry, I'm busy right now. Yep, okay. Johnny Cash, or Reba McEntire's, you remember that red dress she wore for the 1993 CMA Awards? They also have some really iconic vehicles in there. Elvis Presley's 1960s solid gold Cadillac limousine, Jerry Reed's 1980 Pontiac Trans Am from Smokey and the Bandit 2. Notice the unique architecture in the end design. If you view that from the air, it looks like a bass clef, like a massive bass clef. And you notice the sweeping arch just above us here. That is meant to look like a 1959 Cadillac. Notice the windows in the front. What does that remind you of? Well, it's supposed to resemble piano keys. And you notice the tower there in the distance with the little apparatus on the top. That is meant to look like the original WSM tower where they broadcast, WSM radio broadcast the Grand Ole Opry. Originally built back in 1932, still sitting south of Nashville. They're still using the original tower. But this building they're really proud of. It was all built with native materials from the Mid-South. Wood, concrete, steel, stone were used in the building's construction. But it's a reminder of country music's strong roots and the lives of working Americans and how that music has influenced. So let's look back here again at the Music City Center. Isn't it just an impressive building? And then on the very far distance there, you see the new Marriott, the JW Marriott building, that really shiny glass tower. So we're going to walk across now to the Walk of Fame here, kind of like like in Hollywood, but Nashville sort of has their own version. We'll get a little bit better view of Bridgestone Arena here too. I'll turn around so you can see. Big monstrosity just in front of us, where you see that big tall building down there. That is Broadway. That's where all the honky tonks are, and this arena is actually built to face Broadway, so we'll see it from the front a little bit later. But it's a really big building. They can seat up to about 20,000 in that building. But that is really built for the Predators, the Nashville hockey team, the professional hockey team. That was the very first major league team that came to Nashville. And of course, the most recent one was the Tennessee Titans. The old Houston Oilers moved here a few years back. So this is a map of the Walk of Fame. And so we'll go over there so you can see that. This building across the way is the Hilton. And you see that building sticking up sort of behind the Hilton with the two aerials. That's the tallest building actually, not only in Nashville, but in the state of Tennessee. We're going to get a little closer to that. But from this vantage point, you can see, they call that the Batman building. So I think that's kind of cool. Let's see here. So, oh yeah, I was going to mention, you know, the Bridgestone Arena here. The CMT Awards are happening tonight, actually, and who's performing? You know, some country music entertainers you might recognize: Brooks and Dunn, Luke Bryan, Ashley McBride, Jimmy Allen. Shania Twain is also going to make her first CMT Music Awards performance since 2011. It's being hosted by Taylor Swift, who actually lives here in Nashville, in a high-rise kind of down in the Music Row area. Brandi Carlile is going to be a presenter, as well as Jessica Chastain, Katy Perry, Kelly Clarkson, Tanya Tucker. So that's all happening tonight in this building, the Bridgestone Arena. But like I said, a lot of that has been pre-recorded because there's going to be no live audience. So let's look down here at this is the Walk of Fame Park here. So you see right here is Roy Orbison, Winona Judd. So, you know, all the movers and shakers over the years, Vince Gill, all the movers and shakers in country music over the years. But this is part of the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, actually started this a few years ago. And, you know, most of the country music stars live south of Nashville, kind of in a southern suburb called Brentwood, I'm sorry, all the way down to Franklin, Tennessee. I was down there yesterday touring some of the plantations down in Franklin. It's just a cute little town. Should say it used to be a cute little town of about, you know, 5,000 people, and now it's grown to like 80,000 people, but it still has a feeling of a small town. So a lot of the country stars have moved further south from Brentwood down to Franklin. But yeah, this is Walk of Fame Park here. You know, some of the famous residents that live in Nashville or lived in Nashville, you know, some of them are no longer with us. I'll name just some of them: Trace Atkins, Chet Atkins, Pat Boone, Johnny Cash, and June Carter Cash, of course, lived here. Now you can really see the Batman building here. Look at the beautiful garden they have planted on the east side of the park here. So it's very nice, this vast open space that you see. You can see Bridgestone Arena there again, and then in the corner there is Music Center, the Convention Center, and then the Country Music Hall of Fame. And then, so you can see these real high-rise buildings here. Let me just kind of pan up here so you can see that a little bit better. This one here is right in front of us is Bridgestone office tower, and then you see a couple of residential towers over here to the left, and then you've got the Pinnacle right here. So there's a lot of like new high-rises right down here in this area. Yeah, and you know, some of the other people that live locally here, the country music stars, Patsy Cline, of course, lived here. Billy Ray Cyrus and his daughter Miley, Jimi Hendrix, Emmylou Harris, Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, Alan Jackson, Waylon Jennings, the Judds, Chris Christopherson, Lady Antebellum, Loretta Lynn, Barbara Mandrell, Martina McBride, Roger Miller, Willie Nelson. I mean, just anybody that you can think of. Aaron Neville, Dolly Parton, Kelly Pickler, remember her from Star Search? Little Richard, Tex Ritter. Some of them are no longer with us. Donna Summer even lived here. Taylor Swift, Ernest Tubb, Shania Twain, and Carrie Underwood, of course. So we're going to take you up over the pedestrian bridge here so you can get a nice view of the Cumberland River and the skyline of the city. But I'm going to show you their new opera house here. I shouldn't say opera house, Symphony. You'll see they've got their share of crazy homeless people here too. And so not as bad as San Diego, but pretty close actually. And so they're a little bit different here though, because they come up and they want to have a conversation with you and try to get your attention and get you to talk to them before they do their pitch. But there really is a lot of homeless people here. So this is absolutely beautiful right in front of us, this building on the right. This is the Nashville Symphony Hall. And what's really remarkable about this is, it looks like an old building, doesn't it? That was actually built in 2006 at a cost of $123 million. It has a capacity of about 1,800. Let's get a good view of that so you can really see that building. But it is just absolutely gorgeous. And you know, that's kind of the official style of Nashville. You'll see a lot of Greek revival, classical revival structures such as this, and they try to keep that style in all of the new buildings. They just built a new public library that has that classical revival style also. So isn't that gorgeous? It's really a beautiful building. But the center is named in honor of Kenneth Schermerhorn, who was the musical director and conductor of the Nashville Symphony. And so this is an example of new classical architecture. I just think it's really a beautiful building. Then again, you have the Pinnacle building here right in front of us. That's more of an office tower. So I'm going to take you down one of these side streets, and I'm going to show you the Johnny Cash Museum and also the Goo Goo Cluster store. Some of you probably are wondering what a Goo Goo Cluster is. Well, if you've ever eaten a nut goodie, some of you probably remember eating a nut goodie as a kid. Well, they're kind of like nut goodies, but they've got a store here that's dedicated to Goo Goo Clusters. In 1912, in a copper kettle at the Standard Candy Company at Clark and First Avenue, which is not very far from here, America's first combination candy bar was invented. A roundish mound of caramel, marshmallow nougat, fresh roasted peanuts, and real milk chocolate. More importantly, this was the first time multiple elements were being mass-produced in retail confections. And previous to the advent of the Goo Goo Cluster, candy bar manufacturing consists of bars solely using chocolate, caramel, or taffy. And so the Goo Goo Cluster represented the first time a bar consisted of more than just one principal ingredient. So let's look across the way here, and you can see the Goo Goo Cluster shop. So some people always say, well, where in the world did that name come from? That's an unusual name, Goo Goo Cluster. Well, there's myths about that. The most popular myth is that due to Goo Goo's longtime partnership with the Grand Ole Opry, to this day, many people think that the partnership was the basis for the candy. That Goo, G-O-O, literally is an abbreviation for Grand Ole Opry. However, the Opry was actually formed in 1925, 13 years after the Goo Goo was invented. So the true tale of how the candy got its name is that Howell Campbell was riding a streetcar to work one day and told his fellow passengers about this new candy he had made. And he mentioned that he was struggling to find a name for it. And a few fellow passengers made suggestions, but nothing excited him. And so eventually the conversation shifted, and a school teacher inquired about Campbell's young son. And Campbell told her that he just said his first words, Goo Goo. And the teacher said, you know, you should call your candy Goo Goo. And from there, the first slogan was born, Goo Goo. And the tagline was, it's so good, people will ask for it from birth. So over here on the left, you've got the Johnny Cash Museum, and I'm going to try to get across the street. Notice how you're hearing music in the background? Well, that's because they start playing music here in Nashville in the bars afternoon, and you can go in and have a drink or eat lunch or whatever pretty much anytime, you know, during the daylight hours, and you're going to hear country music being played in the bars. So yeah, that's the Johnny Cash Museum. Of course, he filmed his Johnny Cash show, TV show on ABC between the years of 1969 and 1971 over at the Ryman Auditorium. But let's see, Goo Shop, let's see if I can just take you a peek in there real quick so you can see what that looks like. I gotta put on my mask real quick. Yeah, so this is what a Google cluster looks like, you guys. They have all these. So it's a whole store devoted to Google clusters. Very cool. So if you're looking for a fun gift for somebody when you're coming to Nashville, yeah, buy them a Google cluster. Or buy them a Google cluster assortment. So anyway, this is on, by the way, where we are right now. This is 3rd Avenue, or 2nd Avenue, I'm sorry, 2nd Avenue. And so now we're going to go up to the pedestrian bridge here, the Seigenthaler Pedestrian Bridge, and we're going to get a wonderful view of downtown Nashville and the Cumberland River when we get up to the top here. This is really amazing view. When we get up a little ways further, you're going to see that there are parks on both sides of the river. They have 2 new riverfront parks that were recently completed on both banks, the east and the west bank of the Cumberland River. And part of that project was a outdoor amphitheater. There's a river landing I'll show you. So just things to provide more access for people to the river. Because of course back in the day it was very much a steamboat shipping industrial kind of river. So we're going to go up a little ways further here, but this is 1st Avenue here, looking down at 1st Avenue. And so we'll keep going. Across the way where you see that giant stadium, that's actually Nissan Stadium. That is where the Tennessee Titans play. That's actually on the other side of the river. So we're going to get a great view when we get up to the top here of the entire skyline. You can see that they're doing some construction here. There's really a lot of construction going on in Nashville right now. A lot of it is residential and a lot of it is hotels, which is kind of unfortunate with the hotels, because one thing we have noticed right now in Nashville is that nobody's here. It's very slow, and in our hotel there aren't very many people. We're staying at a Hyatt, and I was in a Sheraton today, and they kind of looked at me like, I never knew we had anyone staying here. So yeah, the hotel industry right now is kind of in sad shape. So look at the Nissan Stadium where the Tennessee Titans play. You can see the bridge here. This connects downtown Nashville to the residential suburbs of East Nashville. It was built in 1907. Originally named the Sparkman Street Bridge. And it spans over the tracks here of what used to be the Tennessee Central Railroad. I'll tell you more about that depot here in just a minute. And so The bridge was closed to automobile traffic in 1998. It's been restored for pedestrian use, and people come out here to get that amazing picture at night. Over here to the right, you see this other bridge. That is actually a vehicular bridge. That is the Korean War Memorial Bridge, and that lights up in neon at night, so it's really nice. They're doing some bridge work here, so they've got one side of the bridge closed, the south side, but the north side that I'm walking on right now is open, and the view here is just incredible. They've got a little cutout up here that I'm going to take you up to so you can see this. But if you ever get to Nashville, definitely come out here on this bridge, preferably at night when the skyline is all lit up, because it is just unbelievable. Oh, somebody said Nissan makes a pickup truck that's called the Titan. Huh, Barbara, that's good information there. I didn't know that. So look at, they've got all this little hand railing, fencing, that's got little riverboat images, and then you can see they've got all kinds of little viewpoints. So that's the east side of the river over there where you see Titan Stadium. By the way, John Seigenthaler, he was an American journalist, writer, political figure. He was known as a prominent defender of First Amendment rights. He joined the Nashville, Tennessee newspaper in 1949, resigned in 1960 to act as Robert Kennedy's administrative assistant, and he joined the Tennessean as an editor in 1962, and later a publisher in 1973, and chairman in 1982, before retiring as chairman emeritus in 1991. And he was also the founding editorial director of USA Today from 1982 to 1991. And during this period, he served on the board of directors for the American Society of Newspaper Editors from 1988 to 1989. And so this is the Cumberland River that we're seeing. This is considered to be a major river in the south, 688 miles. It flows generally west in this direction, and it connects up with the Ohio River, which connects up with the Mississippi River. And so the river system has been extensively developed for flood control, but you can see how they created this landing down here for people to enjoy the river, and on both sides they've got some art over there, and then you see the Batman building again there from this angle, and up there a little bit from the side angle. But isn't that an amazing view? I just think that is really gorgeous. By the way, the Nissan Stadium was built after the National Football League's NFL Houston Oilers agreed to move to the city in 1995, and the NFL debuted in Nashville in 1988 in Vanderbilt Stadium, and then this was opened in 1999. So I'll tell you a little bit about the history of Nashville. In fact, I don't know, you probably can't see it from here, but way down past where you see kind of the amphitheater, riverboat landing, you might be able to see sort of a wooden structure down along the river. That was the original fort that was built on the river, called Fort Nashboro. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but they still have that. You can see that. On January 1st, 1780, James Robertson founded Nashville when he led his group of pioneers across the Cumberland River to a place called Cedar Bluffs. And these men built a fort here called Fort Nashboro, which would shelter the first families from Indian attacks that ended in 1792. And it was named for Francis Nash, who was a Revolutionary War hero. And Nashville grew quickly because of its strategic location, accessibility as a river port, and later as a major railroad center. And in 1843, the city was named the first permanent capital of the state of Tennessee. So we're going to see the Capitol building here a little bit later. In 1860, of course, the rumblings of secession began to be heard across the South, and antebellum Nashville had become a very prosperous city. And the city's significance as a shipping port made it a desirable prize. And as a means of controlling important river and railroad transportation routes, both the North and the South, of course, were vying for control of Nashville. And so in 1862, Nashville became the first state capital to fall to Union troops. The Battle of Nashville, December 15th and 16th, 1864, was a significant Union victory and perhaps the most decisive tactical battle, tactical victory gained by either side in the war. And then, of course, within a few years of the end of the Civil War, the city had reclaimed its importance with regard to shipping and trading, and developed a very solid manufacturing base. And so they had newfound prosperity here in Nashville. And so these healthy economic times left the city with a legacy of grand classical style buildings, which can be seen around downtown, and we're going to be seeing a lot of them today. And so fast forward about another 100 years, in the 1970s, the city had started to experience tremendous growth. It had kind of went down in the 70s because the Ryman Auditorium quit hosting the Grand Ole Opry. They moved out to Opryland, USA, and it kind of killed downtown. But Nashville nonetheless started to really grow. It wasn't until the 90s that downtown started to revitalize. But, back in the 70s, when I used to come here, downtown Nashville, go to Broadway bars, the word on the street was, it's not safe. Don't go there after hours because it's dangerous. And so it was very seedy, back in the 70s. Now, definitely not. It is totally reinvented itself. So if I can make it down all these stairs off the bridge without falling on my face, I'm not used to having to do my own camera work here anymore. So anyway, hopefully I don't lose you here because I'm walking kind of underneath the bridge. But if I do, just sign back on. So yeah, they had a big building boom here in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They built the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, the new one. Music City Center, the new convention center, the downtown Nashville Public Library, the Bridgestone Arena, the Nissan Stadium that we just saw, and also the new Symphony Hall. And also, that Fort Nashboro replica that we saw, that's not the original fort. They recently redid that and turned that into kind of an information center on Nashville's history. Of course, one of the things that people always want to know about Nashville is, what is the climate like there? What is the climate like? So I'm seeing people talking about no masks. You see some of both. It's actually pretty much the same as what I'm seeing in San Diego. You see some people wearing masks, some people not wearing masks outside. Inside, you have to wear a mask. And so unless you're eating dinner, it's pretty much the same thing as in California. So Nashville climate, they have what's called a humid subtropical climate. Generally cool to moderately cold winters, hot and humid summers. Just to give you an idea about the average temperatures in July, an average high would be about 46 and a low would be about 28. July, did I say July? January would be 46 and 28, and July would be 89 and 69 for a high and low. Average snowfall here, they do get a little bit of snow. They get about 6 inches of snow a year, and they do get about 47 inches of rain, which is a lot of rain. But rainfall is typically greater in the winter and spring. This time of the year, fall, you don't usually see rain, but yeah, 47 inches of rain. As southern cities go, It's less humid than a lot of cities in the south, mainly because it sits up on the Piedmont, and they get the jet stream coming through here, so they get a little bit of a breeze. Their humidity in Nashville averages about 83%, 60% in the afternoon, which is considered to be pretty moderate for, you know, southern cities. So I wanted to take you down here so you can see the river landing from closer up. All over Nashville, you see a lot of people doing little TV programs. Also, people will bring down their guitars and their amplifiers. They'll make a little makeshift spot for themselves on the street. And the level of entertainment is just amazing. You know, even on the street when you hear people singing, they might be just set up in a parking lot. It's just crazy. And then unfortunately, you also do see quite a few homeless people here, some of whom are younger kids carrying a guitar case and a few duffel bags. Sure, they packed up everything from home and thought, oh, I'm going to Nashville, I'll make it somehow. And guess what? They end up sleeping on the streets. So I've seen a few of them these last few days. And so I wanted to take you over here to see the great view of the river from down below. We were just up above there on the bridge, so you can see how they've redone this river landing. It's just really gorgeous how they've done this. Isn't that beautiful? So this is First Avenue here. We're looking up Lower Broadway, as they call this. The street in front of us is Broadway. Down this way, we'll get a little bit better view of Fort Nashboro. Off in the distance, you see that big kind of pole. Just behind that is Fort Nashboro. I would take you down there, but honestly, I don't think it's really worth the walk. But just know that if you do come here, it is there. Fort Nashboro. You can go down there and you can learn about the first pioneers that came here and settled. So that's pretty cool. Oh, I should mention this train station here that you see. That actually is the train station for an excursion train that goes out once a day east of Nashville. East Nashville? Or actually, I think it's west. Yeah, east of Nashville. Anyway, you can take a little, tourist train excursion out once a day. It's also where Gray Line starts their tours. But they do not have any passenger rail service here in Nashville. They also do not have any light rail. They do have, of course, city bus. But they used to have passenger rail service. They had the Floridian Amtrak train that used to come through here. Started in Chicago, went down to Florida via Louisville and Nashville, but they discontinued service back in 1979 due to poor track conditions and low ridership. And of course, this is not the building that they would have boarded out of. There is a very grand station, Union Station, that is now a hotel. That is where the passenger rail service used to be. But yeah, Nashville does not have passenger rail service. So Hard Rock Cafe right here on First Avenue. This is the street that runs right along the Cumberland River on the west side, on the downtown side of the street. But you'll notice there's a lot of brick buildings everywhere in downtown Nashville. A lot of these, of course, were associated with the riverboat. Nashville is very much a cattle, agricultural type of place where they raised cash grain crops, cattle. They still do. But a lot of these buildings are associated with that. They're banking buildings, but they're all historic buildings. And that have been, repurposed. I like that the city has, saved these buildings and turned them into something. So now it's going to get kind of noisy for you guys, probably. I don't know how much noise my microphone is going to cancel out as we walk down these two main streets along Broadway. But before we do that, I'm going to just do a little segue up 2nd Avenue where you see these cars turning. And they have what's called here, they refer to all these historic areas, these historic buildings in Nashville as the district. And that would include the Broadway Historic District, which we're seeing right in front of us. And that would include also this street that I'm going to turn on, 2nd Avenue. I'm going to turn right on that, and there's a bunch of bars there. And then also Printer's Alley, which I'm going to show that to you a little bit later. So 3 areas that are kind of under that blanket called the district. So look how pretty this street is. They've got some really nice trees planted here. Both sides of the street have these brick turn-of-the-century buildings. I wanted to take you down here because one of the most popular honky tonks, you know, and even if you're not a country music fan, I'm really not a big country music fan. I still enjoy going out to these bars, these honky tonks in Nashville, because the level of music is just incredible. So look at, they're already playing here.
Three little lights go down.
They're already playing. That's called Market Street Emporium, famous saloon. And then down here is the Wild Horse Saloon. That is one of the more popular honky tonks. They probably have, it's hard to guess, but maybe 50 honky tonks. So you come down here in the evening, especially anytime after 6 o'clock, all of these neon signs are lit up, and you've got tons of people down here. So yeah, the Wild Horse Saloon. A lot of them serve food also, but they aren't necessarily known for their great food. It's kind of like almost an afterthought, but some of them are a little bit better than others. And then you have also a lot of places where you can buy goodies, like Mike's Ice Cream here is a super popular ice cream place in the city, and they have some really unique flavors. Here, like listen to these: Rocky Top Road, Black Raspberry Chip, Banana Pudding, Blackberry Cornbread, now that one sounds good, Maple Blondie Walnut, and Pralines and Cream. Look at these giant cookies here. Look at these giant cookies. So this is kind of like the place to go for desserts. Like, look at my hand here in comparison to these cookies. They're like as big as my hand. You can say, can't figure out why I'm gaining weight. I've only been eating 1 cookie a day. So all of these places have, you know, that brick exterior, kind of an older building that has been repurposed, and then they put these neon signs on the outside. So at night it's very, very cool. You know, to come down here, it's just got a lot of energy, a lot of activity, people around the streets. So it's very nice. Hi. A guy just said virtual tour. He actually knew what I was doing. So we're going to turn on the Broadway Historic District. So this is what I'm talking about, you guys, for the homeless people. There's homeless kids with the guitars, their dogs. They live on the street here. It's kind of a good idea gone bad, right? Sounded like a good idea. So yeah, this is Lower Broadway, as it's called. These next couple of blocks that we're going to walk down are just filled with honky tonks. But this is known more casually as Lower Broad, for Lower Broadway. But this is for decades attracted country music fans to honky tonk bars. This is where, you know, so many country music stars got their start. Several of the street furniture and hardware stores played a key role in Nashville's economy in the late 19th century. Many of these have been adaptively reused as restaurants, catering to locals and tourists alike, and many former bank buildings, like I said before. Let's see here. I'm going to point out a few. Now, like I said, I'm not a huge country music fan, but I do follow it enough that I recognize names. Like this building here, you can see how gigantic this is. This is 4 levels, and this is Kid Rock's Honky Tonk. Kid Rock's Honky Tonk. And then Kitty Corner, that is Luke Bryan's. That's the old Broadway bank. And then a little ways further down is Jason Aldean's. You can see that. Now I noticed that Luke's and Jason's were closed last night. I think some of these are only opening on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then they're closed earlier in the week. So yeah, you can see they took an old bank building and turned it into a honky tonk. And then Jason Aldean's, that's another 3-level. They have a little bit better food to it. Those honky tonks, the ones that are being run by the younger stars, and most of them also do have rooftop patio, so that's a big selling point. And they say that on every level is kind of a different thing going on. Like it gets rowdier the further you go up, so kind of interesting. So we'll keep going here. These people walking around with blue shirts on are all Humane Society people. So also along here, you see a lot of places where you can go in and buy boots and cowboy hats, things like that. In fact, some of them started out as a boots and cowboy hat store and turned into a honky tonk. Some of them do both. Some of them do sell boots and hats during the day, and they're a honky tonk by night. So this is really a cool place, Savannah's Candy Kitchen. They have a lot of carameled apples that I thought looked really good. I gotta quit eating though. It's not gonna turn out well for me if I keep on. Let's see here. Oh yeah, let's see. I was gonna show you Ernest Tubbs here. I gotta get down just a little ways further. But if you come down here, someone's singing there. I don't know if you guys can hear that music or not, but hopefully you got to hear a little bit of that. It's pretty loud. That's one of my only complaints about Nashville going into the honky tonks. I guess that means I'm old, huh? Let's see here. There's a couple more that I wanted to show you here. And of course, you're really not an official party place unless you have a Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville Bar. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about this place, Kitty Corner here. This is the old Merchants Hotel. And this is not a honky tonk. They're actually a legit restaurant, and they're one of the better restaurants. But that building dates back to 1892. And yeah, they have, used to be a hotel, three-story commercial building, constructed 1892. And it was rehabilitated in the 1980s as the Merchants Restaurant.
Not being your video.
No. So this is Dirk Bentley's Whiskey Row here. It's so funny people want to be in my video. Can I be in your video? I'm like, no. So here's another view of the Merchants. That building is just so pretty. So this is the really historic block here, this next block that we're going to walk. Let's go walk out on the street here a little bit so you can see these a little bit better. So if you could hear the noise right now, it's really noisy. There are at least probably 4 or 5 bands playing on both sides of the street. So you see this place called The Stage on Broadway. This is really a dive bar, but it's a little bit of Texas and a little bit of Nashville. It's downtown's hottest and edgiest party spot. So if you're really looking to get rowdy, that's a good place to go. But back in the day, many of the old country music legends graced the stage. Hank Williams Jr., well, I guess Toby Keith and Brooks and Dunn are a little bit more recent. Miranda Lambert, Ricky Skaggs, Gretchen Wilson, Pam Tillis. Hank Williams Jr. filmed a video, Why Don't We All Just Get Along Neck Here. And Tim McGraw and Gwyneth Paltrow recently filmed their up-and-coming movie Country Strong here, so at the stage. Across the way is Ernest Tubbs. Ernest Tubbs, a record shop. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, Ernest Tubbs. Let's see if I can tell you a little bit about Ernest Tubbs. Well, I'll talk about Robert's Western World here first. So you see this honky tonk here called Robert's Western World. First of all, when you see that name, you're like, what is that? It sounds like a store or something. Well, there's a whole story about that. Robert's, back in the day, this building that is now home to Robert's was used as a warehouse and office space for river merchants and for a variety of other purposes. And from the late 1950s to the early 1980s, the heyday of country music, the building served as the home of Show Bud Steel Guitar Company. And of course, many of the stars got their guitars here. Some of the most well-known musicians like Don Warden, who is the manager for Dolly Parton, Big Ben Keith, who played for Crosby, Stills and Nash. But of course, in the 1970s, Broadway fell onto hard times because the Grand Ole Opry moved out of downtown out to Opryland, USA. And so this Lower Broadway district became quite seedy. And as a result, during that time, Robert's became a liquor store. It was known as Lynn's Liquor Store. And then eventually, Broadway started making a resurgence back in the 90s. In fact, they started doing shows in the wintertime down at the Ryman Auditorium again, Grand Ole Opry. So they brought the Opry back downtown. And so a lot of these honky-tonks then really started to thrive again. And so this became Robert's Western Wear in the 1990s, and they sold Western boots and apparel. And pretty soon they got a jukebox and started selling beer and cigarettes. And then they started getting solo entertainers to come in and to replace the jukebox. And then they realized, well, there's kind of a market for this. So the concept grew and became known as Robert's Three Doors Down. And they became a full-fledged honky-tonk that served food, had live music. And the Three Doors Down referred to Tootsie's. If you look a little ways further down there, you see a purple building. That is the most famous of all of the honky-tonks, called Tootsie's. Well, Robert's is 3 doors down from Tootsie's, so that's where they got that name. And so the nice story about Robert's is that Robert actually passed away a few years ago, and his house band actually ended up buying Robert's from him. And yeah, so they own it now. And so we were in here the other night before last and had dinner and listened to the house band, and it was really good. So Tootsie Orchid Lounge, arguably the most iconic of all of the country honky-tonks in Nashville. You see the unusual color there, that orchid color. You can see the pictures of all the stars there in the front. Patsy Cline, Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, Mel Tillis, Pam Tillis. You go in there and the walls are just plastered. There's so many photographs on there that you can't even see the photographs. So let's get a nice view of Tootsie's Orchid Lounge while I tell you a little bit about this. You know, many of the modern day artists also got their start here, like Jason Aldean, Taylor Swift. They've all performed here. Willie Nelson, of course, Patsy Cline, Mel Tillis, Chris Christopherson, Waylon Jennings, Roger Miller, numerous other older country western stars also got their start here. Willie Nelson's first songwriting gig came after singing here at Tootsie's. This was originally called Mom's, and it was owned by Tootsie Bass. Her real name was Hattie Louise Bass, and she bought this future honky tonk in 1960. And the name Orchid came later when, to her surprise, a painter painted the lounge purple, and after that the name was changed to Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. And to date, the exterior of the lounge still is the same color. And so Tootsie was known for her generosity. She would slip $5 and $10 bills in the pockets of struggling writers and artists. And she had a cigar box full of IOUs, and rumor has it that a lot of the Opry performers once a year would take out all those IOUs and pay Tootsie the money so she could stay in business. And at her funeral, of course, were Tom T. Hall, Roy Acuff, and Farron Young. And she was buried in an orchid gown and an orchid placed in an orchid-colored casket so she could take her favorite flower to heaven. But yeah, they did a 50th anniversary performance here about 20 years ago. Chris Christopherson, Little Jimmy, Dickens, Mel Tillis were all here performing. But throughout the venue, they have the Wall of Fame that has all of the photographs of people that have performed here and have, you know, graced the stage of Tootsie. So that's a pretty amazing place. So that's the front side there of the Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators play, where they're doing the CMT Awards tonight. Now, I have went to this place too on the corner called Legends. That's another honky tonk, and I've always enjoyed coming here and listening to music. The thing is about coming to these honky tonks, especially for those of you that are not really into country music, you might kind of turn up your nose and say, okay, that sounds terrible. But you are going to be blown away when you go into any of these honky tonks by the sheer talent. It doesn't even matter the genre of music. You realize that the talent is just so incredible. It's almost like you're listening to a recording. And so just any honky tonk, my word of advice for you before deciding on what honky tonk you want to go to, first of all, decide if you want to have dinner there. That might guide you into one honky tonk or another, but most people go to honky tonks because they want to listen to the music. And so I would say just walk up and down Broadway, listen to some of the music coming out of the bars, and if you hear a group that you really think sounds good, go in that bar. So they've got an alley here too. Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, alley entrance, and further down is the stage. Right to my left here, this red brick building, this is the Ryman Auditorium, the original home of the Grand Ole Opry. But we're going to come around the front side of it. This is the back side of the Ryman Auditorium, and I'll tell you the whole story. I hope you guys are enjoying the tour. I really enjoy telling people about Nashville because it's such a unique city and it's got such an interesting vibe. But yeah, this auditorium that we're seeing, the Ryman Auditorium here on my right, you'll get a better view of it here in just a minute. This was opened originally in 1892, so you can, there's the Batman building again. And then to your right would be the Ryman Auditorium. And somebody's doing some filming down there, so I'm going to have to do a little bypass. So you can see the Ryman Auditorium. What does that remind you of when you look at it? You think, that looks like a church, right? Well, the reason is because it was really built as a church back in 1892. The capacity is 2,362. Construction cost back then was about $100,000, which was a lot, for that time period. That would be about almost $3 million in today's money. Building has been renovated and expanded numerous times, but it was originally built in 1892 as the Union Gospel Tabernacle. And Tom Ryman, I'm going to show you his statue here in just a minute. Tom Ryman, he was a local riverboat captain. He was a Nashville businessman who owned several saloons and a fleet of riverboats. He conceived the idea of the auditorium as a tabernacle, actually, for a revivalist by the name of Sam Jones. And he had attended one of Jones' 1885 revivals with the intent to heckle him, but instead was converted into a Christian. And so he was so impressed that he pledged to build a tabernacle so that the people of Nashville could attend large-scale revivals outdoors and hear Sam Jones preach. So this is a picture of Tom Ryman, the riverboat captain, and then this is the kind of the new front entrance of the Ryman Auditorium. If you ever come here, this is the way that you would go in. It is a paid admission to go in. They have a nice gift shop, and you can. They have plaques all over that tell about the history of the Ryman Auditorium. Of course, it's on the National Register of Historic Places. The interesting thing about Ryman Auditorium too is that Tom Ryman never did want the building named after him. He was kind of a humble guy, and so Sam Jones kept telling him, "Oh, well, we should really name it after you." And he goes, "No, I didn't want to." So here's a statue of little Jimmy Dickens. Little Jimmy Dickens first debuted on the Ryman stage in 1948 and went on to become one of the longest tenured and most beloved members of the Grand Ole Opry. And his rhinestone-studded outfits, wild novelty hits, and infectious country humor captured the hearts of millions. And he was a member of the Opry for 49 years. And Dickens was one of the Opry's greatest ambassadors and a mentor for new generations to come. So little Jimmy Dickens statue there. But yeah, we're going to start walking here towards Printer's Alley, but I'll tell you a little bit more. So Tom Ryman actually ended up dying in 1904, and his memorial service was held at the Tabernacle. During the service, the preacher proposed the building be renamed the Ryman Auditorium, which was met with overwhelming approval by the attendees. And so Jones himself died less than 2 years later in 1906. And so here's a better view of the Ryman Auditorium. Experts have praised the Ryman Auditorium's acoustics, calling them the best in the world. Ryman has also served as a gathering place for memorial service for many of the funerals for country music's most iconic singers like Tammy Wynette, Chet Atkins, Skeeter Davis, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash. That's also where Johnny Cash did his television program on ABC in 1969 to 1970. Earl Scruggs' funeral was there. Country Music Awards were held here for about 5 years in the 1960s and 70s. Now, Gaylord Entertainment, the people that owned Opryland Hotel, still own Opryland Hotel, bought this building in the 1990s. And so it's owned by the same people that owned the Opryland Hotel. They changed their name to Ryman Hospitality now, so they took the Ryman name. And so they completely renovated this building for the umpteenth time. And so they've really helped to revitalize Nashville because, like I said, they're starting to do the Grand Ole Opry down here more often. They do it 3 months during the winter, and then they do it other times of the year as well. So anytime, Grand Ole Opry comes downtown, of course, it pumps a whole lot of money into the downtown area. because people come down here to have dinner before, go to the honky tonks afterwards. And now I'm sure some of you are big friends of the Prairie Home Companion. The first performance after they newly renovated the Grand Ole Opry in the 90s was Garrison Keillor's Prairie Home Companion in 1994. And Keillor said that he was inspired to create a Prairie Home Companion while reporting on the final Opry show at the Ryman in 1974 for the New Yorker. And so I should tell you a little bit, as we're making our way to Printer's Alley, tell you a little bit about the history of the Grand Ole Opry. It was founded, the Ryman Auditorium came first, 1890. It wasn't until 30 years later, really, that the Grand Ole Opry was founded in 1925 by George D. Hay as a 1-hour radio barn dance on WSM radio. And it was among the longest running broadcasts in history. And, I should say it's still broadcast. And so the Opry is the show that made country music famous. 1939, it debuted nationally on NBC radio. And then they moved to the Ryman Auditorium in 1943. So that's about 50 years after the Ryman was actually built, that they moved in. And so as it developed in importance, so did the city of Nashville, which eventually became, of course, America's country music capital. And membership in the Opry today, of course, remains one of country music's crowning achievements. Like I said, they moved out of Ryman in 1974 to go out to Opryland, USA, and then now they're coming back. So this is the central business district now. We're going north of Broadway towards the state capitol. And Nashville is a city in its own right, with or without country music. They have a big banking industry here. They have, of course, the Tennessee state capitol. So they have got a very good economy with or without country music. And so we're right in front of the Batman building, the AT&T building. Let's get a better view of that here. Well, you can't really see it from here too well. I think we saw it better before. But yeah, the tallest building, the AT&T building, by the way, that is 617 feet, 33 stories, and that was built in 1994. And so next, what we're going to take you through is Printer's Alley. This is another entertainment district that runs through an alley. We're not going to walk all the way through it, but we're just going to kind of glance down there so you can get a feel for what it's all about. But traditionally, the center of Nashville's nightlife, Printer Alley used to be, really, in its earlier days. And a series of posts where men bound for the courthouse hitched their horses. And by the turn of the century, it had become the center of Nashville's printing industry. And in its heyday was, circa 1915. They had 13 publishers, 10 printers that were located in the area serviced by the alley. And so Nashville's two largest newspapers, the Tennessean and the Nashville Banner, also had their offices there. And then they had a speakeasy, or they had speakeasies there during Prohibition. So you can see the sign down there for Printer's Alley. We'll get a little bit closer. One thing, my biggest complaint about Nashville, well, I shouldn't say my only complaint, but my biggest complaints about Nashville are there's not very much parking on the street. Like metered parking, you have to pay parking lots. The other thing is, let's see, what else is really different about Nashville downtown? Oh, their street light, or their traffic lights are incredibly long. even when there's nobody around. You just sit and sit and sit at the traffic lights. So kind of weird that way. So I suppose they're timed for a time when things were busier, and right now in downtown Nashville things are not very busy. And so you see the sign for Printers Alley. This is all lit up, of course, at night. We're on Church Street, by the way, and we're going to just venture not too far into Printers Alley, and then we're going to come back the other way, the same way, and I'm going to show you the state capitol then. So let's just kind of take a peek down here at some of the bars and what have you. So it's just an alley that has a bunch of clubs. And so right now, I would say Printers Alley, just based on what I'm seeing, is kind of in a decline. You know, I walked through here last night and there were a lot of people out on the streets trying to get you to come into their bar, you know, drink specials and things like that. You're not seeing that on Broadway. I think Broadway is kind of the place to go right now, and 2nd Avenue. And this is kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. But they still have, especially during, you know, this time. At the very end, they have a bar called Skull's Rainbow Room that dates back to 1948. It was a speakeasy lounge. That's actually a pretty good place to eat. It was #1 on TripAdvisor for restaurants in downtown. So we're gonna head back up Church here and get a look at the Nashville Public Library. Got a little ways to walk on the streets here. You'll notice that the driving streets are pretty narrow here, and which may be the reason why they don't have a lot of street parking here, because there just isn't room. Another thing you don't see that much is one-way streets. In this area, a little bit more up by the Capitol, but down by where my hotel is at, south of Broadway, there's virtually no one-way streets down there. So that's really different. I actually like it because, you know, so you can see, looking up these buildings here, that these are big towers, and you know, we're very close to the state capitol here, so I'm sure a lot of people fly in for state business and they stay at these hotels up here. They've got some real big Sheraton, Marriott's, Hilton hotels, and what have you. So does anybody have any questions while we're walking here? We got just a couple blocks here to walk before we turn and go up towards the Capitol. We've had a pretty good following here, huh? We're going to see the library, the new library building, that again is built in that neoclassical style. That's very nice. This building right here that you see, this real tall high-rise tower. Let's see if I can get a good look at the top here. That's really a nice glass high-rise building. That's called the 505 building. Technically, that's taller than the Batman building, but because of the spires on the Batman building, it makes it taller. So, but it's technically the tallest building, 543 feet, 45 stories. So, as you can see, there are some people out on the streets here, but not that many. Not that many. It's pretty quiet. Where is the Bluebird Cafe? Bluebird Cafe is actually out of the downtown area. You have to travel to get out to the Bluebird Cafe. So I know I was thinking about going out there and watching a show. That's probably the most famous of all of the honky tonks in Nashville, but it's not in the Broadway district area. You have to travel to get out there. And I have never been. I would really like to go there sometime. Thanks for the question. So, just up here on the left is another neoclassical building. That is the Mckendree United Methodist Church. And so all over Nashville, you see a lot of really popular, or really a lot of buildings that look like that, the Greek Revival, neoclassical style. And let's see here. Oh, you know what? I just went past Puckett's Restaurant here. I should have mentioned that to you. Let's see. So yeah, right down in the end there is Puckett's Restaurant. I ate there yesterday. If you ever get to Nashville, that's really a good place to eat. They have all kind of the southern home cooking favorites, like fried chicken. It's broasted, they fry it fresh for you. You have to wait for like 30 minutes for them to get it out to you, but it's well worth it. Meatloaf, biscuits and gravy, pot roast. That's where I had the cobbler yesterday, the blackberry cobbler. That was just to die for. Let me see if I can zoom this out again. That's the problem. When I zoom in, I can't zoom out using this Facebook Live. So I might have to put this down a little bit so I can do this. I've been to Nashville several times, and so I feel like I'm pretty familiar with the city, especially downtown, and it is super slow downtown compared to what it usually is. I'm going to have to set my camera on something so I can zoom back out. We're going to make a right turn here, and we're going to walk up towards the state capitol. This building here on the left, this beautiful building. Another building that looks really old, but it's almost brand new. So let me see if I can zoom back out here. There. Okay. Yeah, so on the left-hand side, we'll get a better view of it here in just a minute, is the new library here in Nashville. I'm just, really impressed with all of these buildings, new buildings that they built in Nashville, and how they're either, really impressive architecturally, modern-wise, or they've kept in this traditional style, but they're all, I think, really tastefully done. So you get a nice view here of the Nashville Public Library. And that building was built in 2001, and it's done in the modern classical style. A.M. Stern Architects of New York built that, and it mirrors the classical tradition of Nashville's public architecture, such as the state capitol and the Parthenon. And it has a grand staircase to the lobby. You can't really see it, but they've got chandeliers. You can see the chandeliers on the top there. But yeah, they have staircase in the lobby, grand staircase, lots of skylights, large windows providing a view of the state capitol, which is behind us, and the original artwork that was commissioned exclusively for the library. And yeah, so very impressive. So down at this end, we'll see the state capitol here in just a minute. We'll get a better view. But when you're standing down at the state capitol, you can see the library pretty easily because the state capitol sits up on a hill. So we are doing pretty well. We're just about at the end here, so timing wise. Now the Tennessee State Capitol, in my opinion, is very impressive building. And try to find a parking place around here. I did end up parking on this street today, and I had to drive and drive and drive. I asked one of the security guards, I said, are there any free parking lots around the Capitol? And he kind of looked at me funny, like, are you kidding me? So anyway, we did find a spot here. And so we'll get a nice view of the Tennessee State Capitol building here in just a minute. But before we get up to the state capitol, of course, on both sides, there's all kinds of really impressive buildings that are all done in that neoclassical style. Really very impressive. Kind of like what you see in Washington, D.C. I'm really just so impressed with their buildings here. So when we cross this street, Union Street, we'll be going up some steps into the War Memorial Plaza. And this sign here talks about on August 18th, 1920, Tennessee became the 36th state to ratify the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, thereby giving all American women the right to vote. And so, anyway, it talks about that. This is what totally fascinates me. There's nobody around. It's like, where is everybody? So on the left-hand side, you see this building here. That is the Military Branch Museum here, the neoclassical building. Further down is the War Memorial Auditorium. Over here, well, we can't see it quite yet, but on the other side of these trees, kind of below the glass building there, would be the Performing Arts Center. That's kind of a basic looking building, nothing too spectacular to talk about there. But when we get up here to the main plaza, I came here last night and there must have been, I don't know, 50 to 100 people here with their backpacks, and I thought, is this some kind of a student outing or something? And it was all homeless people. I guess this is where they go to congregate. So you see these squares where there's usually fountains. They do have their fountains shut off. There's another fountain right in front of us that is shut off, kind of where you see the trees there. But this is the War Memorial Building here. This is basically a monument. Well, the statue in there is a monument to the soldiers in World War I. So I'm going to walk up the steps here because you get kind of a nice view from up here. But yeah, this this plaza does attract some unusual people, I have to say. Yeah, in memory of the sons of Tennessee who gave their lives in the Great War, 1914-1918. And so just above that, you can see another big, tall, square office building. That's a state office building, and that was built in the 1970s. That was the tallest building in Nashville and in the state of Tennessee for many years. In my opinion, it's not exactly the most attractive building, but nothing in the 70s for the most part. What were we thinking in the 70s and the 60s? Some of the buildings we built. It's like, oh my God. I think we were listening to ABBA too much or something. So look at the view from up here. So over there in the corner would be the Performing Arts Center. Nashville does have a ballet. They perform there. That is not where the Symphony performs. But they do also have a Broadway series that they do there. And then you can see, so down this way would be where the War Memorial Auditorium is at. And then down this way would be the museum looking south. And as we make our way up the steps here to the Tennessee State Capitol, it's a pretty impressive building. I saw my niece Judy was watching there for a while. Judy works at the North Dakota State Capitol. I don't know, Judy, if you're still watching. It's really a different looking building, isn't it? This building was designed by William Strickland of Philadelphia and Nashville. Built between 1845 and 1859. It's one of Nashville's most prominent examples of Greek Revival architecture, and it's only one of 12 capitals that does not have a dome. It was added to the National Register of historic places in 1970. This hilltop that we're climbing up used to be occupied by the Holy Rosary Cathedral, and that was the very first Roman Catholic church in Nashville. Keep walking up here so get a nice view. And so we'll turn around so you can get a really good view of looking back at the library where we just came from. So that's a really nice view of the Capitol right there. The main entrance. Let's get up a little bit further before we turn around. So yeah, looking back on the south side of the Capitol Mall, way off in the distance there, that is the library. That's where we just came from. And you can walk around the back side of the state capitol. They have, this goes on, the mall goes on north of here for quite a ways. Green area all the way down. And they have the Tennessee State Museum down on the other end of the Bicentennial Capitol Mall. And then they also have a farmer's market building down there. But I wanted to show you the statue of Andrew Jackson. Let's see here. 7th President of the United States from Tennessee. Probably the most famous Tennessean. So yeah, we'll come in here real quick. I'm not going to go all the way down there though. So you can see the statue here of Andrew Jackson. So yeah, so speaking of politics, I'm kind of wary about talking about politics, but you know, of course, Nashville does have both Democratic and Republican influences. Nashville has traditionally, the city of Nashville has traditionally been a Democratic stronghold since the end of Reconstruction, and has remained staunchly Democratic, even though, even as the state as a whole has been Republican. And while local elections are officially nonpartisan, nearly all of the city's elected officials are known to be Democrats. At the state level, Democrats hold all but 2 of the city's 10 state house districts and all but 1 of the city's 4 Senate districts. And typically, Democrats do very well in Memphis and Nashville, while the Republicans dominate the suburban areas of Memphis and Nashville, and also more of the rural parts of the state. Tennessee, of course, is known to be more of a Republican state. In 2016 election, about 60% of the vote was for Trump. The mayor of Nashville currently is John Cooper. He is a Democrat. So, you know, when you always think, I always like to mention that because, you know, when you think about the South, southern cities, you know, you just think conservative, Bible Belt, that sort of thing. But Nashville is, I would say, kind of the exception. You know, they are kind of more on the liberal side, the city is. So looking down here, you can see the rest of the Capitol Mall. And down at the very end on the left-hand side would be the Tennessee State Museum. And then you see that building right in front of it that looks kind of like a barn. That's where the farmer's market is at. If we were to go down this way, west of downtown, we would go into what's called Music Row. Studio B is down there. That was where the Nashville sound was invented back in 1956. You can still go inside of Studio B and tour. That's where Elvis did some of his very first music down there in Music Row, Studio B. It's still where all of the recording studios are in Nashville. That's where Taylor Swift lives, down there in Music Row. But we're looking west here. So if we were to go south towards the southern part of the city, Brentwood, Franklin, that is where a lot of the country music stars live out in the country. So anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around here, you guys, because I think I'm about done. And I hope that you enjoyed that tour and got something out of it. It was fun doing the research and, just telling you about a place that I really enjoy taking people. So when and if we ever get back to doing tours again and I'm able to lead a tour back to Nashville, usually what you see is a tour that does Nashville, Memphis, and New Orleans, kind of a music themed tour. That's a really good tour if you enjoy music. So look for that coming up because it's always one I try to do every so often. So anyway, until next time, so long from Nashville. Happy travels, bon appetit. Hope to see you next Wednesday when I'm in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. Same time, same place, 11 o'clock Pacific. So thanks again for joining me, everybody.